What's going on, guys? I'm going to show you guys a video on doing a static timing check. Let's say you're installing brand new points onto your bike, or you do not have a test light per se to run the bike and use a test light on the system to see how it's firing. Ideally a timing light's great, but if you're putting brand new points on, you got to set it up somehow. Okay, you can, if the bike was running prior to your new points, point plate, whatever, you can put the plate on pretty close to how it was before. You still need to make sure that it's at least somewhere in the realm of it being able to run with that brand new points plate that you put on there. So a static timing test is great to do. I like static timing. It's quieter and you don't have to run the bike. But timing light I feel like is great for when, obviously, when you're checking to make sure that the timing is advancing when it should on the flywheel, because you cannot do that with a static time style of test. But knowing how to static time any points bike is crucial to owning one. You gotta know this type of information. So I'll be doing it on the 450. Quick shout out to Eric, who's working on his 750 in our inner circle. He's got older 750 with the points on the right side of the bike. This one uses 2 points, but they are up at the top of the motor, and I need to check the flywheel position down here at the bottom. So I have the bike leaned over on the wall, so I lose as little oil as possible. I have to pop this cover off to turn the motor through while I'm checking up here. But regardless, it's the same fundamental test or check that you would do with any type of points bike, points ignition system, okay, an adjustable ignition system. I'll be using just a really simple turn signal and some jumper leads, because I don't feel like making new connections for this turn signal. I have the battery on a charger, because I will be turning the key on periodically to check things out. So having the bike charging while you're doing this is always good. It's always good to have your battery charging anyways. Alright, so I'm going to pop this cover off. This is where more of the points are at on the CL CB 450s. And as well as the 350s, kind of similar. It's kind of right in the center. And we're going to learn how to static time an ignition system. Little to no oil seepage, which is great. My gasket's still intact, which is awesome. But here's my flywheel here. Okay, that's where I'll be putting the motor in the right degree to line it up with up here. I haven't checked these points for a long time. So I'll be turning the motor over here. It does help if the spark plugs are out, because you're not fighting compression, but I don't care. It's not in gear. I'll be able to turn it through and get these points firing. Obviously, you want to be turning the motor in the right direction, okay? If you look at your flywheel, they'll have markings for left fire, left top, or LF, FT. You know the direction of the motor is going based off of those markings. So if it's LF and then LT, that's left fire, left top. It's always going to fire before it hits the top dead center. That's just common knowledge to know. So I know that this flywheel is going to need to turn this way in order for me to do the timing and not go in the reverse direction, right? On the 450s, they have a marker here so I can line up my LF, which is also on the stator there. And you'll notice that on the 450 model in particular, when you get to that point, there's some rotation going on. So it's hit a point where, yes, it's firing, yes, it's at top, but the weight of the crankshaft and all that, how that all works, it's allowing my flywheel to kind of fall downward. So I would be checking this still just by kind of holding it here. But on some models, you may not find that, okay? You may not be fighting that per se. Alright, so this is where the black magic takes place, okay? It may come off confusing, but I'm going to try to explain it to you guys the best way to not over-explain it and confuse you more. But what we're ultimately doing with the test light is creating a different ground for the light to power off of. Okay, so, and this is what I mean by that. So you have 12 volts coming from the battery, so this is obviously all grounded. Okay, the motor's grounded, the plate's grounded, the fixed portion of this is grounded, so this part moves and connects back to a ground. And this is a ground by the motor and the frame and the cables, make it back to the battery negative. So we have 12 volts from the battery coming in through the primary windings of your coil. Okay, let's say it's for this left cylinder. 12 volts coming in. All right, the coil is comprised of two different windings, primary and secondary. Secondaries are a lot tighter and the amount of wind is greater than the primary wind, okay? What I mean by coil is just literally a coil of wire, all right? So that's the easiest way to describe it. So you have 12 volts coming into this point. So this is when this point is closed, okay, fully closed, it's making a 12 volt connection all the way through the point, okay? From this wire coming in, this yellow wire, all the way through this strap on the back, and it's making a connection back to ground, okay? It's happy. As soon as this cam lobe here turns, okay, it will open this point. Once that point opens, okay, it loses its ground. It doesn't know what the heck to do, all right? Because of that disruption, okay, it creates this dramatic effect, part of the electromagnetic field that drops inside the coil, and it applies it to the secondary coil. The coil, that secondary winding, because there's so many, steps up that 12 volt voltage to like a crazy amount of volts, 22,000 volts, something crazy. It all depends. And then, because it needs that much to find a path of least resistance, which is the spark plug, to jump that gap in the spark plug. Okay, so because it loses its ground here, electricity will always try to find a path of least resistance. You probably heard it 1,000 times. So because that breaks the connection, it's like, oh crap, I have to find a ground somewhere. So where was I? I don't remember where I was at. That path of least resistance ends here at the spark plug. The spark plug's grounded to the motor because it threads straight into it, and that's the path of least resistance. But there's so much voltage coming out, it's been stepped up to a crazy amount that when it makes its way to the spark plug, it jumps that gap. Black magic takes place between the little gap between the grounding strap of the spark plug and the inside, the electrode, something like that. That gap, and it's able to send enough voltage to jump it to create that spark. So I say all of that just to confuse the heck out of you guys. Hopefully you guys are kind of catching on. That breaks, and what we're looking for with our timing light is that we're going to take power, share power really, from that band, which definitely has 12 volts right now, but it already has a ground, right? This is going to go to one side of our test light, and then we're going to ground it here, wherever, to the other side. Okay, so path of least resistance, it's going to take it from the light. Okay, so once that ground breaks, we have a new ground for it. All right, because of that quick, oh cool, 12 volts, now I don't have 12 volts. Because of that taking place, the coil does what it wants to do, but we are making the ground for our light and taking the 12 volts from this light. Okay, that's why your light lights. So when that breaks, the moment that just the hair of a break that takes place in that point to make that light come on is when it fires. Okay? So as soon as that light comes on, boom, sparks taking place. And think about how fast that's taking place. Okay? I mean, going 5,000 RPM, that coil is doing some pretty phenomenal things to supply voltage to that spark plug. Okay, so that's why the light lights, that's why we're checking it, that's what the static time is. We are waiting for this cam to go around, break this gap, because I have a ground ready for it, and that will give power to my light. Now, I had to reshoot this part of the video because A, the camera stopped, B, I found out that my turn signal, actually I found out that my battery was too low to power my turn signal because it was asking for way too much voltage, okay? That's why I said use low volt stuff. Indicator lights for your meters, that kind of stuff. You can probably buy a test light on Amazon. I'm sure there's one for like 2 cents with free 2-day shipping. I'm sure you can find something out there. But like I said, LED strip of lights works really good. LED turn signals, those work really good. Just so you're not stealing so much from the battery, of course. As you'll see in this video, I have to discard my turn signal and go to an old school style test light. That test light's kind of confusing to me because I have to re-ground the tip of it to make the circuit complete. But you'll see that I switched over to that because the turn signal did not work, but I wanted to keep part of the footage that I did get from the turn signal because there was some juicy stuff in there. So, just to add 7 more minutes to the video, that's a quick explanation of how amazing your ignition system is. Okay? So, on this one, it's not really giving me any indication on the points plate per se, but there's a yellow wire and a blue wire. typically that's the colors that Hondas use. Okay, so if I just follow this up, the yellow ones on this side, the blue ones on this side, or purple, whatever, and it goes to this first coil on the left, which spark plug wire goes to, guess what? This left cylinder. So that yellow wire is going to be from my left cylinder. Okay, it's, if you want to look at it as being anatomically correct, that points on the left side. This points on the right side. This is my left cylinder. This is my right cylinder. But if you follow the wires and see, okay, this yellow wire leads to that coil, that left coil, and that coil wire for the spark plug goes to the left cylinder. That's a great way to just double check what you're doing. Okay, so I have the positive lead hooked up to the power side of that point. I have it grounded so we can read. And I'm going to take this and complete the circuit and give myself power. So that green light, okay, is the points open right now. So spin this thing around. I'm going to try to open up left fire. As soon as LF pops up, my light should come on. I'm going to take the ISO down a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so and it really doesn't matter where I'm touching with this. I'm just going to go right on the ground because this is just me completing the circuit. So when this LF comes around, keys on, see that light? Those points are just opening, just bam, right there. So what I would do is at the point of those points opening, right there, the light comes on, I will then look down and look at my rotor to see where it's lined up at. So here's my alignment tit, okay. I've had this theta respun, so they put a little clear gook on my point, which is okay. Spin this backwards. There's my LF right there. See how it's lining up? So I'm just going to back this back and forth. Boop. It's really hard to get this shot. I'm just going back and forth. When it comes on, comes off. Comes on, comes off. And when it comes on, bam, right there, I'm looking to see where it's at. And it looks like it's directly lined up on my LF. Perfect. That point is in time. It's firing when it should, because it's a little bit outside of LF. Okay, I'm a little bit outside of it. The light's off. We'll go back on. You can actually hear an electrical little spark tick. So my point is in time. It's perfectly in time. So I'm going to take this, swap this over to my right cylinder. Now we're just going to read the other timing marks on the flywheel. Okay, that compression bleed out of there. Okay, so here's my fire mark. Right there, there's my mark there. There's my advancer marks. There's my fire mark right there. I want it to end up exactly on the fire mark. So let's watch the light. On. It's like we're almost a little bit past the fire mark. Let's bring it back a little bit. Alright, it's already off. Bring it forward. And my light's on right now. Okay? So we're a little bit past the fire, but it's in time. That's enough for it to run. Okay? That's enough for it to run. And that's, I mean, in a nutshell, that is static timing. If I'm hooking up my points for the first time, I'm going to set them in a degree or close enough to where they were before. Okay, that's going to be a good blind shot in the dark of where they should be. Make sure that none of your wires here are grounding or touching the plate or touching the cover at which that goes on. Make sure that these are just all clear, and put these wires and these connectors in the same orientation as they were before. There's going to be some non-conductive pieces of washer that go in between certain plates because they want certain wires or that wire to touch a certain part of the stem. Okay, so just pay attention to how they're all lined up. Take pictures, whatever. When it comes to putting your wires back on, My condensers on mine are located on top of the coils, okay? So there's no condensers here on the plate as if they were on a bigger bike, like an inline 4 or something like that. They put them right on top of the coil to get them because they can't fit them here, right? But that's it. I like using LEDs because it's very, very low draw in case you have a dead battery like I apparently do. Didn't know I did, but I do. I hate maintenance style batteries, by the way. The ones that you gotta fill, I hate them. I need to get a better battery for this bike. But my points are relatively in time. The left cylinder, I might have been calling it the right the whole time. I hope I haven't been. The left cylinder is right on fire, okay? The right cylinder is just past where the fire should be on the stator. But certain bikes, or they respond better when that timing mark, I mean, it's just a hair or two past that fire mark. The reason why I say that is because the piston's going up, okay? Obviously, the spark plug fires before the piston hits top dead center, okay? So if you think about it, if you time the spark to be just a hair past when stock setting would be, which is right on fire, which is not a problem. You can set it right on fire, and it's going to run amazing. But just a little tip. If you set it just a hair past fire, there's a little bit more compression built up. Piston's gone a little bit further up. Then you ignite that blast, there's a little bit more there. I think it adds just a minuscule amount of performance to your point setting. That's why I like points so much, because you can set them kind of where you want them to be. Obviously, they have to be where they need to be, which is at the fire mark. If you're setting it way at top dead center, you can run into a bunch of different problems. Don't do that. It's going to run like crap. Plugs will be black. But set it on the fire mark, or if you can, if you're particular, if you're precise, just a hair past fire is I think is a great setting. Okay, so I wouldn't mess with this. They're in time. For another tip, if the condensers are going bad and you fire the bike up, maybe do it in a dark room, have your cover off of where your points go, and you can actually visually inspect your points. And if you're seeing really bright white sparks popping off of your points, the condensers have gone bad. Just for the sake of understanding, the condenser's job is like it's like a fail-safe for spark to not exit at the points. Okay, it's there to minimize that arcing that can take place if it wasn't there. Okay, it's coming from this kind of self-inducing thing going on inside the coil. The condenser's there to kind of help minimize that, to help minimize pinning on the points themselves, the point contact surfaces. It's there to help minimize arcing at the points themselves when they get interrupted and open. It's being released too soon, which makes the spark weaker at the spark plug. But as long as it's sparking or the light's turning on when you're on your timing mark, it's all that matters, okay? Static timing, no noise made, it's just the best check to have, okay? Hope that helps you guys out. Battery's dying. I'll catch you guys later.